Economic factors could not be bothered about your little shtick that you may be doing there. Now, I say this, but in reality, people are affected when it comes down to it. There's no hiding. Reality about market forces, reality about profits, the way organizations and businesses work are just too jarring. And guess what? These organizations build their success on the backs of developers and individuals out there who are looking to make for themselves a living, in many cases in the part of art, something that actually represents the quality of their work. These reports are coming out more recently, and I think it's very important that we take a very close look at it. Shout out to Sway Casanova. He quotes Kami over here, and he says NetEase CEO debated on canceling Marvel Rivals before launch because he didn't want to pay Disney the licensing fees. Sway says Marvel Rivals might not be long for this world. We know Marvel and Disney licensing fees are insane, but if they were debating on canceling the game before release and they're doing heavy cuts now, I wonder if the game even turned a profit, even with how successful it became. I think it did turn a profit, but when you're writing that check to license holders, it's a very interesting place to be, Sway. I mean, think about this particular juxtaposition. Let me show it to you guys right here, right? NetEase releases a Marvel game. They follow it up with job cuts, right? Let me show you another one. PlayStation basically went ahead and pressured its own development teams to go ahead and, lay off people after it'd been hit with those particular expenses for development for Spider-Man 2 and other games. Do you guys remember that? You guys remember that PlayStation pressured its studios because of the Spider-Man 2 or part of the Spider-Man 2 thing or whatever it is and whatnot? There it is. PlayStation pressured the studios to make big cuts amid increasing development costs. This week, hackers who breached, this was at that time it was written, and vowed to release the information, blah, blah, blah. Elsewhere, files show Insomniac was under pressure to make budget cuts with 50 to 75 layoffs earmarked for the studio. Insomniac staff reportedly discussed how to remove 50 to 75 people strategically as requested by Sony, with the best option supposedly to, in quote, cut deeply into the Wolverine and Spider-Man 3 teams and replacing staff with team members from the unannounced new Ratchet and Clank game and a new unannounced IP. So looking at NetEase doing this, even with a multi-platform launch and seeing that, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. In fact, let's go ahead and look at, another Disney-related IP that people have criticized and called failure and all of these things because the company is actually going out there to try to make more money. This is why the gaming industry, to me, has been very interesting in the way they've categorized everything Xbox is doing. And this is why I'm unrelenting when I talk about Xbox and the things that I think they're doing right. I know some people may not like Microsoft as a corporation. I have my problems with them. But when you see the truth, you must be able to say the truth comfortably, regardless of where it is that you are, what it is that you're doing. Phil Spencer, I think, is somebody who really does value a lot of the members of his teams. id have already put in the work to make this expensive game that was probably greenlit before he went ahead and acquired the studio, or maybe they wanted to greenlight more of these licensed games and he wants to basically allow them to express their creativity, but he's not going to let them go down in flames if these games don't sell. So this game is going to go to PlayStation and print more money. I've seen a lot of people say Indiana Jones flopped. There's a lot of PlayStation fans, on just, common public discourse saying that. And I keep laughing and saying, what do you mean Indiana Jones flopped? Indiana Jones is not out yet in full. It's still in early access. And I say that tongue in cheek because only PC and Xbox have been able to get their hands on Indiana Jones. The next big party that will be getting their hands on the game is PlayStation. And that would then basically help us to see how the game has performed overall, which I think PlayStation is going to be that last frontier that's going to give the game the final push. And the developers can basically find themselves in a situation where their game actually rocks, where people actually get to play their game and they get rewarded financially. It brings me to another contention that I have with a lot of the talking heads out there. This particular conversation that Shuei Yoshida actually engaged in just the other day, where he talked about launching games on PC has given these companies the license to go ahead and pretty much print money. I mean, I guess everybody got to see it, right? When he finally went ahead and put it out there. The moment this article pretty much hit the ground running, a lot of contention showed up. And this contention, I think, is pretty much what a spin into fantasy has caused these so-called hyper fanboys to fixate on. They've argued themselves into a corner and described PlayStation's moves to PC as, oh, just a side hustle, just to make extra cash, not realizing that this has been a pivotal money source for PlayStation as a whole, because their first-party games gives them way more money, even though they port it on other platforms, than third-party games. Even though they get first-party 100% on the PlayStation platform in terms of revenue, they'll get 70% on Steam, and not more than 70% actually. It's more like almost 80% on Epic Games, and then bring that back home compared to the 30% they're getting from everybody else. And so Shuei Yoshida basically has been a very pivotal structure and person in this particular conversation. Him coming out to say all these things have been very damning to a lot of the talking heads out there. In fact, what's even very interesting is, if you remember last week, Colin Moriarty made this video where he compared Xbox to Icarus for being greedy and thereby flying too close to the sun and then seeing it put its games on other platforms. When in reality, PlayStation has been thinking, has been working, according to Shuhei, who wanted to do it much longer than PlayStation wanted to go ahead with it, and decided that now they want to go ahead and put their games on PC because they themselves, having acquired Firewalk and acquired Bungie and acquired all these other studios, decided that it was smart for them to put all those live service games day one on PC, which is a very solid business proposition. And in a market like this, where you're making these expensive games, why not print money where gamers are? And Phil Spencer, committing himself to do so, has basically raised a very weird aggression from a lot of these people. I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, we're in an age of post-truth, where now the truth is now a problem and nobody wants to tell it anymore. Instead, gaslighting has now taken pretty much the place of where truth has to be. Even some people who have claimed and do claim that they're Xbox fans surprise me the most. Their own takes and their own conversations about what is going on in the industry makes no sense to me at all. Like, literally, I can't even understand exactly why a lot of these folk have any influence, because maybe they're fans, but maybe at the end of the day, when it comes to a business, if they can't even see that PlayStation is doing the same thing, that big companies like NetEase is doing the same thing in terms of trying to go ahead and find profitability, and rather than go ahead and talk nonsense about Xbox, point out true criticisms, like these companies basically chasing after this money and then throwing their own developers to the side, then I think we're cooked in this gaming conversation. It's absolutely shameful at the end of the day. I cannot believe we're here, where PlayStation is running to PC for money. And when you said this just a few weeks or even years ago, people said that you were crazy. People said you were being disingenuous. That's what these folk told me. You're being disingenuous. I'm not being disingenuous. I'm pointing out the reality, and I'm so glad that, people are now starting to tell everybody what is going on. And this is going to open eyes, I think, for the future. The conversation has changed. Thanks for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.